I had the privilege over the last several years to scout and hunt in many different terrain features with none other than Dan Infalt, the big buck serial killer. And there was three things that Dan did that really taught me a lot of really solid lessons as a deer hunter, and I wanted to share those with you today. The first one was, anytime I was in the woods with Dan, he went slower than me. He was very diligent about every single step of the whole entire process of hunting. We were in the parking lot. He was, looking for sign of other hunters, thinking about, is this the best place to park for this property? When we get into the woods, every piece of sign, he'd examine it. He would look for clues. He would see the terrain differently. He would slow down and really think about how would a buck use this terrain. When we get to a setup, it was like he was pinpointing and picturing a scenario in every single situation that could arise that a buck may filter through. And he was trying to connect dots that I often overmissed because I was going too fast. And I think that's why Dan was really good at finding overlooked spots, is because he slows down. So tip number one that I learned from Dan Infalt is slow down in the deer woods. Tip number two that I learned from Dan Infalt, always ask why. Whenever you're in the parking lot, ask, why is there so many people in this particular hunting spot? Is there something obvious on the map? Is there a big city nearby? Ask why and learn from those whys. When you get to the woods, if you find a scrape, a rub, a bed, why? Keep asking yourself why. You do not know the answers. Ask yourself why. Every track you see, every piece of hunter sign you see, ask yourself why. And that kind of correlates to being able to slow down. So ask yourself why, and then slow down and take the time to answer that why, at least to the best of your knowledge. So that was the second thing I learned from Dan Infalt. The third thing that is super unique about Dan, that a lot of us hunters don't do anymore, is he keeps everything simple. And specifically, I mean his gear. He carries exactly what he needs at any scenario. Dan carries, I think, 5 sticks with him all the time. And you may, us deer hunters, we tend to get into this cycle of, I want to bring less and less and less and lightweight, and do all these things that are, more efficient in our minds. And Dan doesn't think about the efficiency of the equipment, or the efficiency, and I mean efficiency in the terms of us deer hunters have defined it. He wants to be efficient for killing a big buck. And if that means not using aiders, because sometimes I make a little bit of noise using aiders, if that means carrying an extra stick because I may need to get 25 feet instead of just 20 feet, does that mean that I am going to design my own stand because I didn't like what was on the market? Dan is super simplistic and I say that in the most respectful way. Like he wants his equipment to work properly, and he wants it to be simple. He also, lightweight is important to him, but he's very strict on it. Can be lightweight, but it cannot sacrifice something that's going to sacrifice me getting the shot at a buck. And I really learned a lot from him when it comes to equipment. And I think in the industry, we're drawing away from that type of thinking, and sometimes it can be a detriment. I mean, don't get me wrong, lightweight equipment that's compact and everything is a great thing, but at the same time, sometimes we sacrifice so much because it's maybe because we're lazy a little bit, or maybe because it may be a little bit more uncomfortable to carry. And then in reality, we may be missing opportunities because of that. So that's something I've been thinking about a lot when I think back of my time spent in the woods with Dan. So just to summarize, make sure you slow down in the woods. Make sure you ask yourself why on everything. Pick out that perfect tree to set in. And then third thing I learned from Dan is, do not sacrifice something that's going to cause you to not have an opportunity at a buck because you're chasing an ounce or two, or some type of insignificant comfort that doesn't really matter in the long run. I hope you guys liked this video and enjoyed it. If you want to see another video, click right here. If you want to subscribe, click right here. And I'll see you on the next video.